Hi, I'm Marty Nimco. Curiosity enlivens life. Kids are endlessly curious, yet in adulthood, we may feel we've seen enough, learned enough, even become cynical. So we just passively plod through life. Well, this little talk attempts to restore a bit of that sense of wonder. As you participate in the world, you might ask yourself, what does that make me curious about? Well, here are some examples to evoke your thinking, trigger your thinking. Because the transcript of this will be in Psychology Today, I'm going to start with questions from that field. What is at the root of mental illness, anxiety, depression, autism, schizophrenia? What underpins other human characteristics, altruism, intelligence, impulse control? Of course, environment matters, but the root may well lie in places along that chain, from gene to protein to cell to circuit. But where? If I were starting my career over again, my curiosity about such questions might make me well pursue a career in cognitive genetics. Next, some questions derived from my experience as a career counselor. That's my main career. What will happen when there aren't enough good jobs to go around? Sure, there are plenty of low-pay, mind-numbing gigs, but most people, including most readers of Psychology Today, would not be content with a life as a burger flipper or a janitor, let alone as an assembly line worker in a clanging factory. Will the shortage of well-paying jobs make people become less materialistic, with government providing an ever more generous safety net? Will mental illness increase? Will there be increased, to use the polite term, social unrest? In hiring, why would employers use the resume as the core screening tool? It's clear, and there's abundant research on this, that many applicants' resumes present an inflated, sometimes downright dishonest picture of who they are. Because employers use resumes not just as a recitation of work history, but as a proxy for the candidate's ability to write, think, and organize, when applicants use a hired gun to write their resume, employers can't know if they're evaluating the candidate or the resume writer. Why don't employers give primacy to an online test of candidates' ability to do the job's key tasks? To avoid their using a hired gun, that is, the candidates would be informed that if they were selected for an interview, they would take a parallel quiz under proctored conditions. Why do many employees work the least they can get away with? A UK study found that the average office worker actually is working for only 2 hours and 23 minutes a day. Can such employees feel good about that? Do they, especially the half that work less than 2 hours and 23 minutes, not worry that it endangers their employment, let alone their advancement? Do they not feel sleazy about getting paid for 8 hours but working only 2 hours and 23 minutes? That their life's meaning, at least in part, should be deriving from being productive? And finally, some questions regarding humankind. Why is the institution of marriage, with its call for lifetime commitment in sickness and in health for richer or for poorer, persisted despite half of marriages ending in divorce, often bitter, expensive, and hurtful to the children divorce? Why do we so prioritize family over friends? After all, we're thrust into family by chance, friendship by choice. And the notion that you can always count on family is so often untrue. Haven't you often heard people who are furious at and estranged from family members? Why do we still have wars? Are leaders so cruel as to subject countless people to mayhem and death, usually for mere territory or religious fealty? The horrors of war, endlessly described in the schools, colleges, news, and entertainment media, hasn't seemed to deter our leaders, at least some of them. And today's nuclear arsenal dwarfs that even of the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And then there now are the highly compact and thus less traceable suitcase nukes and bioweapons. All it would take for a sci-fi-like dystopian nightmare would be for a few private planes to release an airborne, highly communicable pathogen over New York, Los Angeles, Washington, and so on. Why hasn't that happened already? Why do many people spend so much more to get a product that isn't demonstrably better? For example, diamond at $5,000 a carat versus cubic zirconium, which is usually more perfect at $1 a carat. The more service-requiring and breakdown-prone Mercedes or Beamer rather than a Toyota or Honda. Ironically, people worth caring about think less of the person who, for example, wears an expensive $5,000 Rolex compared with an equally reliable $20 Casio. Can we not come up with a better system for electing our leaders? Are Donald Trump and Joe Biden really the best that this country has to offer? Our current system requires a non-stop permanent press the rich's flesh campaign, which deters the best people from running. Why not have campaigns be just 2 weeks long and publicly funded, with candidates' bios, voting records, and key proposals provided by a neutral body such as Consumers Union, and promulgated by the media? Why is education still taught much as it was centuries ago? Lecture, discussion, individual and group projects. Why are we not making more use of dream team taught, highly interactive, individualized lessons? Artificial intelligence can even detect kids' moods so teachers can respond. Why have U.S. politicians so resisted nuclear energy, despite physicists long having found that physics delimitations preclude solar and wind from being more than a small part of the clean energy solution? Of course, Fukushima, Chernobyl, and 3 Mile Island persist in our consciousness, but today, most of the world uses more nuclear and does so safely. Of course, researchers should be encouraged to develop ever safer nuclear with better waste disposal. But if use of fossil fuels is so dangerous to the planet, should we be not so resistant to nuclear energy, which can provide a virtually unlimited supply of clean energy? Fortunately, after 48 years, the Democrats are finally endorsing nuclear energy. Why are we legalizing marijuana? It's worse than a second alcohol, when we see that in jurisdictions in which it has been legalized, there's been a major increase in vehicle accidents with drivers who are under the influence of marijuana, with the attendant pain, suffering, and death to them and, of course, their family members and friends. And the science is now unambiguous. You can certainly Google, I've done reviews of the literature for Time Magazine and Psychology Today. Just Google marijuana and the name, my last name, Nemko, that marijuana increases the risk of everything from memory loss to IQ loss, depression, social anxiety, and cardiovascular and lung disease. And anecdotally, at least, we all know people who use marijuana and thereby seem to suffer from lack of motivation. With the healthcare system already overtaxed before COVID and before marijuana legalization, why is legalization of marijuana on government's priority list? Finally, let's turn to nature. I so wonder how the world actually began. The Big Bang and biblical explanations are too broad brush for me. What in God's name created the first quark? What were the steps from quark to this amazing planet Earth? So, does watching or listening to this evoke any curiosity in you? More important, do you think your life would be enlivened if you walked this earth with a renewed sense of curiosity, asking the questions that you had as a child? In any event, I do thank you for watching. I'm Marty Nemko. I welcome your thumbs up and accept your thumbs down. I always look forward to your comments and especially like it if you hit the share button below. Share on your social media so that my efforts can have broader impact. And I am flattered if you choose to subscribe to my channel. In any event, I do thank you for watching. I am Marty Nemko.